Hey, welcome everybody. We are officially live, and welcome to another Social Saturday chat. And today is a very special one because we have a special guest, a good friend, but an incredible human being who has one hell of a story. And our topic today is what happens when men bottle up their emotions. And I've had quite a few discussions with most of our co-hosts in the background about this on various different conversations. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Alan has to share, because you're going to need to hold on to your seat, strap in, and really just enjoy the conversation. But I urge you to go and share this as well. And if you are joining us for the first time, let us know in the comments. And wherever you are joining us from today, drop that in as well. We'll be allowing questions later on and comments and stuff, and we'll share that on the screen, and Alan will respond to those as well. But we effectively going to get started with just some background stuff with Social Saturday, so everybody knows what to do. So our wonderful Felipe, who everybody knows is like the pro on every other show in this arena. And then afterwards, I will introduce our wonderful guest, Alan Kleinans. And obviously, our co-hosts will be not interrogating him, but definitely asking him lots of questions, because this is what's usually seen as a taboo, sensitive subject that is kind of had behind the scenes. And from lots of our discussions, including one that I had with Alan, my concern is that a lot of these discussions end up happening in secluded environments because, as men, we're always too proud to have these conversations, too worried about our status and what other people are going to think. And therefore, the real hard conversations are actually not being addressed like they should be. So today, we are taking some major risks. We're pulling all those veils away, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. But Felipe, I'm going to hand over to you, and then I'll introduce Alan.
Well, thank you, Mac. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Alan as well. I mean, look, in my years of HR, having those difficult conversations, it's a must-have. But you kind of take it for granted once you do it a lot that, why can't everyone do it? Well, because it takes practice. And those of us had practice in our careers may have gotten some skills, but we're still learning too. So I can't wait to hear from Alan. Well, first of all, welcome everybody to another wonderful Social Saturday chat. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Let us know where you're watching from, and let us know what the weather's like. It is 80 degrees and sunny here outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, the day before Father's Day. So happy early Father's Day to all the fathers here in the U.S. I know you in the UK celebrated on a different day, but so, and then want to also welcome everyone. Today is Sunday. It is June 20th, and it's 2026. And so I want to welcome some people who've joined us in the chat. We have Jackie Hallberg. We have Yvette. Yvette, where's Gabe? Is he still sleeping? Yvette and Gabe are married. So Christy, it's always wonderful to see you here. Sharon Rose, always wonderful supporter. Jackie Hallberg. If you don't know Jackie is actually going to be going through a procedure on Monday. She is donating one of her kidneys. And that is something that if you want to hear the story, go to her page and check out her most recent live. But talking about giving back and just helping somebody, that's amazing. And Mudassar Malik, thank you for joining us. You're a new follower. We'd like having you here. And Merrill Cass. I just give a shout out to Merrill Cass because I don't know if you saw Mac, but Merrill Cass, we heard his voice. He came up on the clubhouse room with Angie Alexander, and it was an accident, but he stayed he engaged, he asked questions, he shared stories. It was like 0 to 100. So it was wonderful to see Meryl, because Meryl is one of the biggest supporters of all our podcasts and live streams, hands down. No disrespect to Kenny. Kenny's a close second. And so with that being said, do me one last favor before we go into this wonderful meeting of Alan and discussion that he has prepared for us, and some questions that we're going to throw his way. If you're not following the Social Saturday Chat yet, do me a favor, go to our homepage on LinkedIn, give us a follow, and after you give us a follow, do me one last favor. Click that little bell on the top right-hand corner. That way you get notified of all the events that we do, and not just the Saturday events, but the events that the other co-hosts do throughout the week. So it's a great way to build our community. We have over 1,000 followers on that page. So the community, kudos to Mac and team for building this community so well, because it really has become a great thing to do on a Saturday. Like I say, for something that we do every Saturday for 2 hours sometimes, usually people are like, oh, my Saturdays are precious. I want Saturdays to relax. I gotta say, this is relaxing, it's fun, and you get to meet fascinating people like Alan today. So I hope everyone takes advantage of it. Repost the room, invite your friends, because this is going to be one of those special social Saturday chats that you're not going to want to miss. With that being said, over to you, my friend Mac. I am done talking.
Amazing. Well, I'm really honored to actually introduce Alan. I've known Alan for, ironically, I met Alan at an event he was speaking at in 2016, 2017, through a good friend of mine who said, you've got to come and hear this Alan guy speak. And I was like, hey, I'll come because I know you, but I don't know who this Alan guy is. And I must say, for me, it was one of the most impactful events that I'd ever been to. And his ability to connect with people in just such a natural, real way blew me away. And when I met him, I was like, okay, he speaks locally, does a few events, and he's extremely humble. And only to then find out that he's one of the top trainers for people like Tony Robbins. He has spoken on, he probably lost count how many stages you've now spoken on, Alan. And in front of
many.
Many. I mean, literally spoken in front of groups of anywhere from a handful of people through to venues where there are tens of thousands of people in the room. He's been able to keep the energy levels up, and really work on transformation in people's lives. But why I felt Alan was such a good fit for today's topic. A few weeks ago, Zion recommended we need to speak about men's mental health. And I thought, who could we bring in that not only can talk about it, but can actually help us look at implementing some things that could drive change. And Alan's life story is a roller coaster. You'll feel like you need to sit down and have a rest after listening to it. He's been in the military and seen some awful things there, suffered with PTSD, addiction, depression, his personal life struggles, and the transformation side of things, how he's taken real life lived experience has been exceptional. So if nothing else, please go and visit his profile, go and follow Alan. I know he's going to be a lot more active on LinkedIn moving forward, but he's typically so busy speaking everywhere and being invited that he doesn't do enough of the social stuff. But I'm going to be changing that hopefully soon. And with that, Alan, I'd love you to introduce yourself, give people a high level overview, and then why not only this topic but mental health and well-being and living at your peak performance is such an important thing for you.
Thank you, Mac, and thank you to your team. It's great to be here with you all. First thing I want to say is, Mac, congratulations on doing this every Saturday for 4 years running, my man. That says a lot. And I feel ashamed to say that I've never actually listened to a session, and I didn't even know that you'd been doing this every Saturday for 4 years. So I feel honored to be here, buddy, and I'm extremely. I don't know if I want to use the word excited, but I'm looking forward to the conversation because it's something that's very close to my heart, as you know. And, to give just a very brief overview of my life, I have under my name on the corner of my window there, it says Transforming Global Consciousness. And it's a tagline that I started using about 15 years ago. And the reason I use that is because since I was 4 years of age, I've always known that I was here for a specific reason. And I transform global consciousness when I'm speaking to one person, one-on-one in the tea room, or the barista who's making my coffee, at a local coffee shop or wherever it is. I see that as an opportunity for me to share love and to pour kindness into the person that I'm talking to. And I'm very interested in human beings. I love meeting people. I love asking questions. Wherever I go, meet people, and I've got a really good habit of asking people their names, and I've got a very good memory, and I always remember people's names. And I think we all have that opportunity to transform global consciousness, whether it's one person at a time or an audience of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people. And I've had that opportunity for 25 years now, traveling around the world, talking to audiences. The smallest audience I've ever addressed was 4 people. The largest audience I've addressed was several thousand. And it's still the same to me, because when I'm in an audience of 4 or several thousand, I'm only ever talking to one person every 5 seconds. And I think, you said something in the intro, and I'm very grateful for that. And I concur with what you said. I'm very humble. Yes, I am. And I also know that I do have that ability to connect with a large audience very powerfully, because I talk to one person for 5 to 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds. And then I move to another person. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do when you're talking to an audience, is to address one person and be very present with that person, because anybody near them feels that. And my interest in human beings, it comes from a place of having overcome tremendous pain and suffering. And through that transformation in my own life, and through that journey of transforming my own pain into profit, and turning my adversities into opportunities, I came to develop a very deep compassion, first for myself and the journey I was walking, and I am walking still. And then also that compassion for myself then overflowed into other people. And then I began to be very interested in other people's journeys. And I began to realize that everybody is the same. And I'm very, very blessed, because I've traveled all around the world. I've spoken in Ukraine, Russia, Romania, all of Eastern Europe, right across Western Europe, Africa, America, and England, up and down the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland. There's still a lot of countries I haven't been to. However, in those journey over the last 25 years, and all the countries I have been able to visit, it's taught me that people are the same wherever you go. We are the same. We have the same fears, and we have the same desires. And we are governed by the same limiting beliefs wherever you go. And we are experiencing the same kind of experiences when we're young. We have something within the Tony Robbins world called the dirty dozen. And what we refer to the dirty dozen is there's 12 problems that every human being suffers with. It's one of those 12 or a combination of those 12, but there's nothing outside of those 12. And those 12 cover everything. And so that just demonstrates that we have far more in common than we have different. And I love people. I really do, because I know that everybody's fighting their own battle in their own minds. And you don't have to have been to war like I have in Angola, and you don't have to have been physically and literally in a war defending yourself and your buddies to know that every human being is fighting a war with themselves in their own head, either with themselves or with the people closest to them, or with the world around them. And so I think it's very important when you encounter people to really think about that, and to remember that whenever you encounter another human being, is to be really present with that person, and also present to the fact that that person may be struggling with something that you know nothing about. And their initial reaction when you meet somebody, and maybe you have a difference of opinion with somebody in the street, it's always good to remember that perhaps that person is in an extreme amount of pain, and you just happen to be that catalyst that allows them to vent that, and it's got nothing to do with you. And I think if we all approach life like that, and we approach each other like that online and offline, we'd have far less fighting than we do, because people are very self-absorbed and very self-conscious, and also just self-obsessed, and they forget that everybody is fighting their own battle. And so I think compassion is a beautiful thing, and I think it's something that I came to, I want to say by accident really, but through the process of really understanding myself and learning about my trauma, and how my trauma had affected my nervous system, and how it was affecting me as a young man, and becoming somebody who wanted to develop and wanted to become successful, and wanted to do things in my life that perhaps my father and my mother and anybody else in my family had never done before. And so, obviously that journey and those traumatic events that I've had and those significant experiences, those significant emotional events that have impacted my nervous system as a young person, including living next to a police station for the first 6 years of my life on earth in Durban, in Point Road, next to the Point Road police station, one of the toughest neighborhoods in the country, the toughest neighborhood in my city, the most violent neighborhood in my city in the 60s and the 70s, which is when I lived next door to that police station. And the education I got from looking into the police yard on the wall through a little gap that no one knew existed except me. It wasn't much of a gap. I couldn't see a lot, but I could see enough to put the fear of God into me and the fear of life, really. And that first base level of uncertainty and fear and trauma was laid in those early years when I sat on that wall at 4 years of age, watching, white policemen beat black men to death. And then that continued. My self-esteem continued to be shaped by the events as I moved, into school and then into boarding school from the age of 14. I went to 2 private schools, very expensive, cost my parents a fortune. I was an academic. It was a waste of money, I figured. However, there's nothing ever's wasted, right? There's always good and everything. And I made some really good friends and I love the sport. But academically, I was nowhere. I got an E for enough. I just made it. And then I went straight into the military. And then obviously, my experience in the military, being deployed in South Africa in different places where South Africa was experiencing high levels of unrest. And in Cape Town in 86, being deployed in Cape Town and watching people get necklaced. And if you don't know what necklace means, to be necklaced in South Africa, it means literally to have a tire thrown over your head with your arms pinned in a tire, and then they set that tire alight. And that's a very popular way of inflicting pain on other humans in South Africa. And then in 87, I was deployed in Angola during the civil war there. And in October of 87, South African Defence Force had the biggest battle in their history. And I was on the front line of that battle and lost a lot of friends and had to kill people and do things that later on, when I got home, began to process and reflect on and began to have nightmares and had those nightmares for 9 years. I started using drugs at 14. I continued severely and heavily after the military. I was drinking already at a young age, and then that just continued. And I did that for 18 years, basically. I was drunk and high for 18 years until I got sober in 99 after attending a Tony Robbins workshop. Actually, I got there 4 days sober before the event started. 4 days I got sober and then got there. And then that was the year, that event really helped me to turn my life around. And then since 2000, when I got my first invitation to speak in front of an audience in London at the King's College, 600 people, somebody had been at the UPW event, had seen my interaction with Tony. I had an intervention with Tony in front of the whole audience, about 1,500 people in Cardiff, Wales. Somebody had been there. They invited me to the London Yes group. That became my new peer group. And then they invited me to speak at the King's College in front of 600 members. That was my first talk. And I had a dream since 94 that I wanted to be a facilitator, and I wanted to speak, and I wanted to teach personal development because I'd been a student. From the moment I came out of the military, I began to study. And my first opportunity came in 2000. And I've never looked back, really. And my life has been about how can I make a difference? And I often refer to myself as mad. I'm mad. I'm MAD. I'm making a difference. I'm going to make a difference wherever I can. Whoever I meet, I'm going to pour love into that person. Whoever I meet, I want to find out about them. I want to lift them up. I want to, I really want to engage with them, and consequently, I've been able to meet some amazing people, and my journey's taken me to some amazing places. And it's brought me here to this place. And I remember meeting you. I think you and I met through Gil, right? Gil Pedersen. Yeah. And I was surprised the other day when you told me you've known Gil as long as you've known him. I thought, wow, I didn't realize that. And what a good man. And he connected us, and I'm glad he did because, we've had great conversations, and here we are talking about another great subject.
Sure. And you put it so, you talk about the challenges that you've faced, but all the lives that you've impacted, because I've watched your journey. I've seen you do, things like getting people to walk over coals so that they can confront their own fears and limiting beliefs and all the other things. But the ability to move beyond the PTSD and the drama and the violence and all the things that you've experienced, but also the way I've seen you over the last few, over 10 years, the people whose lives you've touched on a one-to-one basis. One of the things that I always find amazing is that you can be in a room with 100 people or 1,000 people, but when Alan's speaking, you feel like he's speaking to you only. And when he is speaking to you, he doesn't. He gives you undivided attention, but also that regardless of your background, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what your journey has been, he sees the individual because of the trauma and the life experience you have lived. Now, our topic, around what happens when men bottle their emotions up, for me was a vital one, because so many of us, Alan's just said there, that we're all walking our own journey. We don't know what the other person is facing. And, I've had various things in my past, but every time I've asked myself, and Alan, I'm going to start with this question, is retrospectively looking back is a wonderful thing. The problem is when you're in that situation where, as an example, I got made redundant in 2002, 2003. And when you go through whatever the process is, whether it's a loved one, a life happening, a job loss, or, when you go through that, it feels like we are this tiny speck, and the problem is this thing that totally smothers and surrounds us. And when I look back now, I feel that it was actually ridiculous and silly that I felt so stressed and so like I let go of my own personal self-belief because I felt I was worthless because I got made redundant. And that one decision there just it defined the next 6 years of my life. So I couldn't move on because I held on to something that nobody else even cared about. Nobody else was thinking about. But and I see that happen to so many men, where whether it's something financial, the disappointing their family, disappointing friends, or it's status, or, what is the best way to get yourself back into the moment so you can truly reflect on where you are versus where you feel you are?
Yeah, you've said a lot there, and I've got a whole bunch of things I want to say. However, before I answer that question, I think it's what's important is that, first of all, men do not open their hearts and are not vulnerable very easily, because we have been taught that vulnerability is weak. However, I learned a long time ago that vulnerability is really powerful. I've seen a lot of very powerful men be vulnerable. I've experienced powerful men be vulnerable with me, and it's very, very inspiring. It's very moving, and it opens up your heart when you experience another powerful man be vulnerable in front of you or with you. It has the ability to open your own heart. And I think men, first of all, need to understand why they do what they do, and we need to understand what governs behavior, what drives human behavior. And what drives human behavior are beliefs. And we all have beliefs, and all beliefs carry consequences. You can have a belief like I'm intelligent, and there'll be consequences to that belief. There'll be positive and negative consequences to that belief. The positive consequence of feeling that you're intelligent means that you will study new things, or perhaps you believe that you can absorb information easily, and that's a positive consequence. Or you will gravitate towards people who are intelligent, and that perhaps will create opportunities for you. However, a possible negative consequence to the belief that I'm intelligent means that you may look down on people who are not as smart as you, who you think are not as smart as you. You may shut down opportunities because you judge people by how they come across, or perhaps the first impression has left a mark on you, and you think, maybe you've heard the way they speak, perhaps, and you think, well, you might judge them on the way they speak because they don't sound as intelligent as you. So we have to be very careful about what we believe about ourselves and other people and the world around us. And then secondly, with men, we must remember that men are driven by significance. We all have emotional needs. Maslow spoke about this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a very powerful model. However, most people don't understand it. But if you take Maslow's hierarchy, the base level is survival. That means you need to be able to look after yourself, feed yourself, clothe yourself, etc. You need your basic needs met. And for men, one of men's most important needs is the need for significance, the need to be seen, the need to be seen as powerful, the need to be seen as an alpha, the need to be seen as a leader, the need to be seen as somebody who makes stuff happen. And I think the biggest challenge with men's suicide and with men bottling up emotion, and the result of the bottling up the emotion leads to suicide. Suicide is a very high, with men, it's exceptionally high. And it's happening every 22 seconds, in terms of if you really just specify it for veterans, every 22 seconds, a vet takes his own life, his or her own life. But the numbers are for men is much higher than for women. But then if you take that across the board, men in general, and you look at what happened in 2020 when lockdowns were enforced and men suddenly lost their ability to earn money, men's suicide suddenly escalated even higher than before. It went up by 35%, just like that, bang. Because if you take away a man's ability to earn money, you effectively are taking away his identity, because most men are so locked into their identity of net worth. How much do I own? How much am I earning? What do I bring to the table financially? What do other people think of me when they look at me? What kind of car am I driving? What size house do I own? What does the woman on my arms look like, etc. All of that is tied into a man's identity. If you take that away from him, you're effectively taking his identity away, and a man doesn't know what he is without his identity. And then what he thinks is, I'm not worth anything. I'm worthless. And then rather than actually talking to somebody and saying, this is the way I feel, I'm not even sure I understand how I feel, but I'm not feeling good. I really need somebody to talk to. I want to talk to somebody who can listen, or perhaps somebody who can offer me a different soundboard or a different perspective. What they'll do is they'll bottle that up. And if you bottle something up, after a while it builds up. It's kind of like a volcano, right? Eventually there's going to be so much pressure building there, and eventually that pressure is going to go. And then what a man will do is, most men, a lot of men, they'll say, rather than actually telling people that I'm feeling weak right now, rather than letting somebody know how ashamed I feel of myself, I'm going to check out. And that's why men check out. And it obviously is a lot more intricate than that. It's a lot more complex than that, but that is basically in a nutshell. When a man doesn't feel that he can provide, or he doesn't feel he can make his way in the world, or he doesn't feel that he's matching his peer group, or that he's being left behind, or perhaps he doesn't have the respect of his father, which is a lot of this comes from the father wound, or he doesn't have the respect of the men in his life, and he has done something where he feels ashamed of, and he feels that if I share this with the men in my life, they're going to look down on me. They're going to call me an idiot. They're going to call me a loser. I can't let them know that. So I'll bottle it up. I'll keep it to myself. I'll sort it out on my own. I can get it done. Until eventually, you can't get it done. And then, by that stage, it's very far gone for a lot of men. And they get to the point where they feel no other way out. And I told you the other day, that happened to my friend of mine in January, on the 5th of January. And I think of him now, and I feel emotional, and I miss him, and I wonder how his children are doing right now, and I've been speaking to his daughter since it happened. But that happened 3 days after I spoke to my buddy. The 5th of January, I spoke to my mate. On the 8th of January, he hung himself. And I knew he was feeling low. I knew he was feeling suicidal. I knew he was taking medication for his anxiety. And I was talking to him every day. And on the 5th of January, I spoke to him, and then I didn't talk to him for 3 days. Actually, I got ill, and I was ill for a while, several weeks. I had a stomach bug, and I was caught up in my own stuff, of which I'm going to share a little bit now. And when I remembered him, I couldn't get hold of him. And it was several weeks since I'd spoken to him, and I just had a bad feeling. And I went onto his Facebook, his sister's Facebook, and I just knew, he had checked out. And I called his sister, and we had a chat. She said, he died. He hung himself on the 8th of January, and it broke my heart, man. And funny enough, I was just I'm in the country right now, and I was in a beautiful place recently, just the other day before yesterday, and I spoke to my friend Marcus, and I said, hey, buddy, I miss you, and I'm sending you love, and I hope you're at peace, and I'm going to check in with your kids, So that really does stay with you for a long time when you lose a buddy. But I remember the very first time I lost one of my buddies, my close buddies. His name was also Alan. I think I told you this too, Mac. Alan, he was 14, I was 14, and he jumped out of his mother's window, 14 years of age, 9 floors. And we found out 6 months later that he had been groomed by an older man in our community, and he was so ashamed of it that he didn't want anybody to know. And 14 years of age, he jumped out of his mother's window. And I remember when it happened, I remember trying to process it, just thinking, what? Like, what? This can't be real. Surely I'm dreaming. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and Alan's going to be there. We're going to be in the park playing football. We're going to be riding our bikes. And this was a good-looking kid, blue eyes, blonde hair. He was like a young Brad Pitt. All the women loved him, and all the guys wanted to be around him because all the women loved him, right? And you know what it's like when you're 14. He was a great surfer. He rode a motorbike really well. He could ride on his back wheel forever. He was a great skateboarder. He was fun. He was popular. He had a great sense of humor. And then he was gone, 14. And I just thought, wow, And between that time, which was, a long, long time ago now, till recently, to my buddy Marcus, I've lost a lot of men in my life like that who have checked out, taken that decision to check out, and for a bunch of different reasons. But it boils down to that one reason: is not feeling worthy. And yourself, Mac. You've heard Tony speak many times. And Tony's my favorite mentor and my big brother, and I've been with Tony 27 years now, and it's been a phenomenal journey. And Tony's taught me so much. And I've had some great men in my life. My dad was one of them too, my grandfathers. And I've had a lot of good friends. Gil is also another one I really respect and look up to. He's a great friend. And Gil, Mac, Gil, whenever you talk to Gil, he's always going to ask you how you're doing, how you're getting on, what you're working on, what's good, what lies ahead, right? So those are the kind of men you want in your life who are always calling you to step up. And you also want men that you can call and say, listen, I'm not feeling good. I need hey, even if you just say, hey, I'm not feeling good. I just want somebody to tell me that I'm okay. You know what I mean? That I'm loved, that I'm enough, because yourself, those two beliefs, I'm not enough. And if I'm not enough and anybody finds out I'm not enough, they're going to leave me. And yourself, right? Loss is the greatest component of suffering. Loss is the biggest contributor to suffering, to human suffering. When we lose something, or we think we may lose something, or we've lost something. If you've lost something in the past, you may lose something now, or you may lose something in the future. That fear of loss is what really contributes to suffering for human beings. So for men, it's deeply rooted in the psyche because of the fact that we are so conditioned to be providers, to be achievers, to be successful, to be, to drive the cars, have the houses, spend the money, build the businesses, etc., etc. And that significance that we crave, that often is missing in our young life from our fathers, which is where it comes from initially. Because if you're getting good significance at home from your parents, especially from your dad, and your dad saying, hey, you know what? I see you there. I see you doing great. I'm proud of you. I love you. Not for any particular reason, just because you're a human being, right? Just because you're a soul. Not because, you came first. And that's where we also learn about unconditional love and conditional love. And unfortunately, most people do not grow up with unconditional love. They grow up with conditional love. If you're a good kid, I love you. If you're not a good kid, I'm going to take that away from you, or you're going to sit on the naughty step, or you're going to get no love from me, or I'm going to give you the cold shoulder. And we see that in relationships with men and women. We see men and women who give each other the cold shoulder because they haven't learned how to love each other unconditionally, regardless. You can have a disagreement with someone. You can have a disagreement with your son or your daughter. And you can still love them through that disagreement. And they can feel that. And a child will feel when you are loving them conditionally. They know that. And they know when you're loving them unconditionally. And you have to be able to separate the behavior from the child. And that's where it starts, really, for young boys. And that may be changing slightly in the world. However, that conditioning runs deep. We're talking centuries and centuries and centuries of conditioning. And it's the same for young girls. So that's a long answer to your question, buddy. Sure. And I don't even think I answered the question yet, is how you can actually help people to turn that around. We can get to that perhaps.
Yeah. You answered a lot more. And this is one of the challenges with my wonderful ADHD brain is like, okay, I got to get all my questions out before I forget. And then, yeah.
I've got a good memory.
Yeah. Right.
And Felipe's making notes.
Yeah, well, and he's also telling me to take notes. The only problem is I wouldn't be able to read my own handwriting. So the wonderful digital world we live in now. But I want to open this up to our co-hosts to get involved and because I've just looked at the time and I'm like, I thought he was only speaking for like 5 minutes, and you've held us.
Look at the time.
You've held us captive for I don't know how long with this. Like, and I've been watching the comments and we've got some questions coming through, but I want to kind of let us dig a bit deeper here before our time runs out. But Felipe, I'm going to hand over to you and any questions that you may have to kind of start the ball rolling.
Yeah, and Martha and Joel, have your questions ready because I think this is a room that's go late today, possibly. Alan's kind of with us, but Alan, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, not only just your mindset and your philosophy, but just your personal stories and how vulnerable you are. That really speaks to how important all this is. And one thing that you mentioned about how you talk to people and you ask them, resonated with the whole concept of curiosity. That's one thing that I think people can eliminate so many negative situations if they're curious to ask questions before they. So I love that. But here's my question for you. It goes around what you just kind of on was how are
Felipe, just want to check because is it just me or are we having little
background? No, me too. Oh, yeah, me too. You're cutting in and out, bud.
We're losing your sound every few seconds and just we're hearing like every second word.
Oh, okay, hold on. Let's see here. Is everybody else on mute?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, that's better now.
Now
better now.
All right, as long as everybody's on mute, I think that's now I don't hear it. Okay, much better. Okay, so I said the first thing I said was curiosity is great because it eliminates a lot of negative. As far as passing things down, I grew up in a Latino household. My father did not talk about mental health. He wasn't against it. He just wasn't raised talking about it. So when we were dealing with mental health issues that we didn't know about, like go for a walk, go have a drink, go play with your friends, whatever. You hear me?
You just started cutting out now again, but I heard you everything you said up until that point.
All right. How about now?
Yes.
So my question is this: with men in my generation, I think we've come a long way. I've talked about my mental health with my kids. It's helped them. There goes again. What is that noise? I think I got cut out again.
No, I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm going to just change one setting here on my audio and see if this helps. Okay. You all hear me? Can I hear the background?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so,
what's the question, bud?
All right. So the question with the children in the future, men, I think, always are hesitant about sharing their feelings because it's not commonly done. And so I've witnessed when people do share their feelings, sometimes it gives them down or dismiss because they're not used to hearing men speak about their feelings. And it's not just but women do it, and it's men, but it's something that I think that when men have the courage to do that, what do you say to people when they hear someone saying stuff like that, or they say negative, or something comes up and keep on encouraging that
the last
I lost you at the end.
All right. So, my question: what advice do you have for people that struggle with passing on that knowledge of mental health with their children?
With their kids?
Yes. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to leave it back.
I think the first thing I would say that I always encourage people to do, and especially men, is to be just more loving and more kind with yourself. It's got to start there. Men are very, very critical with themselves. We're very harsh on ourselves because we've often had a harsh father, or we've seen our father be harsh with himself, or we've had harsh grandfathers, etc. And even still to this day, even though things are changing slightly, men are still loath to express their feelings for another man. I tell all my male friends I love them all the time. Every time I speak to them, I say I love you. Ask Mac, I tell him, when I send him a message, I always say I love you, or I say big love, or I send him a heart. I always express love because I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm not afraid to tell a man. I've told many strange men that I've never met before, hey, I love your big guns. Hey, I love that shirt. Man, you look hot. You great looking man. I love that smile, man. And men are very uncomfortable with that because they've never heard that from another man. Why? Because they've never heard it from their own father. So you have to be comfortable. If you're a father and you've got boys, you better get comfortable expressing love unless you want your boy to grow up without the ability to express love. And then how's he ever going to attract a really functional, solid mate if he can't even express love for himself or other people, or he can't say anything that may sound too vulnerable? So there's no easy answer to that question, but I always say to people, the first thing you want to do is you want to get comfortable loving the person you see in the mirror, and you want to do it actively. Self-love is an active process. Love is a verb. Love is an adjective. It's not a noun. That means the only way you feel love and see love or express it or experience it is when you see it in action. When somebody says something or when somebody does something, when somebody's affectionate, you don't see love any other way. It has to be acted on. And so the same thing with the self. You must practice it on yourself. How do you practice self-love? You say kind things to yourself. You acknowledge yourself for no reason. And you do it regularly, or you treat yourself to doing things. You see working out as a gift to yourself. You see working out as a positive act of self-love because you respect your body and you respect the gift that God has given you. And so you're going to do something with it in a positive fashion and use it effectively. So self-love is something that is not promoted. It's not talked about enough, and it's not talked about in schools at all. And it's when people talk about self-love, people say they roll their eyes, a lot of people. These days it's changing a little bit. More and more stuff is online now, and more people are promoting self-love. But for the most part, especially men, talk about self-love and they laugh at you. They say, hey, stop being a Nancy or whatever it is they say, right? And they come up with all these old phrases that are, really disrespectful, And so we have to start doing that. And it's, I've got quite a few WhatsApp groups on my phone. And one of my WhatsApp groups is my school buddies that I went to school with. We're still buddies on WhatsApp, and we've got this group. And still people post stuff in the group that I don't agree with anymore, especially about certain things with how men, the stereotypical man, and I always say to the guys, hey, man, that's not really cool. Man, it's 2026, man. When are you going to grow up? You know what I mean? You're still acting like a 17-year-old. So that's what I have to say about that.
One thing
get comfortable feeling love and get comfortable expressing love.
And I love that. And as a Latino, that's not my problem at all. I'm if anything,
I know.
It's like I'm not a hugger. I'm a hugger. Sorry, but
yeah, me too. I'm a hugger. I hug everybody, even when I just meet them.
Exactly.
Even business meeting.
Yeah.
I put my hand out and I shake and I don't let go. I hold their hand, I look in their eyes and say, do you do hugs? And then I say, yeah, you do. I don't even give them a chance to say no. I said, yeah, you do. And I just pull them in and I hug them.
Well, here's my other thing and this is the part that I don't think you heard earlier was men are starting to get more comfortable sharing their feelings, but people are not. I think people are uncomfortable with men sharing their feelings, and when that happens, they sometimes will shut them down or dismiss them. And what's your advice to people that are in that uncomfortable? Like, I'm not used to my dad sharing his feelings, or my boyfriend, or my boss, but they are humans too. They and obviously, as long as the right setting is appropriate. What advice do you have for people who are uncomfortable with that?
Well, that's always going to make people uncomfortable, especially if they've never experienced anything like that. And, if you are somebody who expresses yourself openly and you're in the midst of people who are feeling uncomfortable and they say something to you, then remember, it's not personal. It's not about you. It's about their discomfort. And then that gives you an opportunity to be even more compassionate and maybe playful a little bit. And, so it's all about being curious. Like you say, curiosity is a beautiful thing. So I would say get curious about how that person might be feeling and notice if they are uncomfortable. And then you could say, it could be something as simple, hey, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I'm just expressing my love, and whatever it is, But you're always going to find people who are uncomfortable with that for sure, because most people do not have that model at home. They've never been taught that as a kid. So it's a new thing for them. And that's why most people are uncomfortable receiving compliments. The average human being cannot receive a compliment, a simple compliment. You look nice today. Oh, what? You mean this whole thing? I picked this up at the thrift store. People deflect compliments left, right, and center like they're playing cricket. So it's, my father gave me some great advice when I was young. He said, Alan, learn to give people a very powerful compliment. He said, learn to compliment people. He said, complimenting people sincerely. He said, don't just give them a compliment. He said, pick something specific and be specific about that compliment. For instance, I like that tie you're wearing. It goes really well with your suit. Or I love that dress. I love the flowers on that dress. I love the color of that dress, how it matches your eyes. Whatever it is, right? It's got to be very specific. It's got to be genuine. It's got to be authentic. And if you can get comfortable giving people compliments and making people feel uncomfortable at first, what you do is you start to help people to dismantle their own wall and their own shell.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you again. I love how passionate you are. I love how you talk with your hands too. I do that. So I always appreciate when someone does that. Martha, let's go to you.
Thank you so much. I want to say also our friends in the chat, I believe Christy and Jackie said Happy Father's Day. And I'm sure maybe there's more there. So just want to also say Happy Father's Day to everyone here.
Thank you.
Alan, thank you so much for speaking today. It is such a warm just to be here with you and listening to you. It's very lovely to hear your voice.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome. I wanted to ask a question. Here, data shows that there are many men that are unhoused, and I have also witnessed this in different states of unhoused men. And my question to you is, why might some men delay seeking help even when they need it?
Because they're afraid, pure and simple. They're afraid to be vulnerable. They're ashamed. Shame is the most debilitating emotion out of all the emotions. If you're familiar with Dr. David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins was a fantastic psychiatrist who was also a very deeply spiritual man, and which is unusual actually for somebody who studied psychiatry to be deeply spiritual, because those two can often be at loggerheads with each other. Those two schools of thought. However, Dr. David Hawkins.
Oh, let's take one.
I think that person needs to be muted down there, please, buddy.
Yeah, Bill, can you put yourself on mute, please?
Thank you. And Dr. David Hawkins came up with a map of consciousness. And in the map of consciousness, he calibrated all emotion, and he calibrated the behavior of emotion, and he calibrated the energy frequency of everything. And he said that everything can be calibrated to frequency. And if you look at his map of consciousness, it's a powerful map. And the lowest, the emotion that calibrates and vibrates at the lowest frequency is shame. And the behavior that's associated with shame is self-annihilation. Just think about that. Self-annihilation. So in other words, a human being will annihilate themselves either quickly or slowly over a period of time, depending on their vehicle of choice, whether it's heroin or jumping off a building, or jumping under a train, or taking drugs over a period of time, or drinking themselves to death. But they slowly are annihilating themselves. And then if you think about people who are really ashamed of who they are, and they've been made to feel ashamed of who they are, or where they come from, or what they believe, or the color of their skin, or whatever it is, right? That shame can build over a period of time. It's very unhealthy, and that's where a lot of disease comes from. But however, it's unhealthy to the degree where for a man, a lot of men, and you see this happening in the world now, and it's been happening for the longest time. It's not something new. It's always been the case. However, what makes it feel new is that we see more of it now, because we're all carrying around this little piece of equipment that allows us to tap into, millions of news sources, not just your main news channels now. Everybody's a newscaster with this phone. And so you see this happening a lot. But men who carry a lot of shame for long periods of time and get to the point where they have a lot of anger and repressed anger, they'll blow up. And what they'll do is not only blow themselves up, they'll blow other people up too, because that's their way of being significant. And they'll say, you know what, I'll show you, as this is my last act of defiance, and I'm going to take people with me, and then you'll never forget me. And that's a very, very destructive way of meeting their need for significance. And they do it unconsciously, mostly unconsciously. So, it's a long answer to your question, but really it comes down to the fact that men are afraid to ask for help. Men are ashamed to ask for help.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alan. That totally makes sense. I've witnessed that on the streets. The explosion part. Yeah. Now, my next question is for single moms who are raising boys, young men. What advice would you have for them? as far as how can boys express themselves to, not changing their ways from little to becoming youth. I'm raising a teenager right now, and he went from being very outspoken to this quiet kid and teenager. He's a teenager. So how do we, what advice would you give a mom?
That's a great question. It's a really great question because I love kids. I've done a lot of work with youth, with Tony's Global Youth Leadership Summit, as well as my own, the one that I ran in South Africa myself for several years, which is still going, sponsored by Rotary. I've spoken at lots of colleges, schools, and universities all around the world, and I love young people. I've worked with kids as young as 12. And I think I always tell parents the same thing. I've got a 24-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. My daughter went through the same thing. Actually, both my kids did. And I'll tell you what I did with them. However, to answer your question now, is that parents, in this day and age, I think it's harder for parents than ever before because of just everything that's going on and because of the cost of living. And, a lot of parents are working more than one job. You've got single parents working 3 or 4 jobs. It's really tough. And what that means is you've got less quality time with your child. And so, we were very fortunate. My ex-wife and I, who's Maxine is her name, and we best friends. She's amazing. I love my ex-wife. I couldn't have chosen a better woman to be the mother of my kids. I couldn't have chosen a better woman to be an ex-wife. She's amazing. And we're great friends. And we separated and divorced amicably. And we were on the same page when it came to our kids because they were 6 and 4 when we initiated that process. And by the time we got divorced, they were 10 and 8. And so, but we were on the same page with our kids, and we said it must be about the welfare of our children, and they must feel like they still are part of a unit, a family, regardless of the fact that we are not going to be living under the same roof, all of us anymore. And I think what's hard for parents now is getting quality time with their kids in the first 7 years of their life. Listen, if you're a parent or you're a grandparent or you know parents or you have friends who are parents, listen carefully to me now. You may have heard this before, but this will be a good reminder for you. Your child's psychology, your child's psyche is completely formed by the time they're 7. Listen to me now, I'm going to say it again. By the time your child is 7, they've already formed their base level belief system about themselves and about the world around them. And they've already decided what they're going to do to stay safe by the age of 7. So if you are not influencing your children from the time they're in the womb, when my children were in their mother's womb, both of them, I was already doing things while they were in the womb to make sure that I programmed the shit out of my kids. Excuse me for swearing, right? But I wanted to program the shit out of my kids to make sure that no other idiot could program them with some rubbish information that doesn't serve them. I wanted my kids to be already programmed to believe that their mind is the most powerful tool that they have, their nervous system, their imagination, their visualization processes, and their ability to talk to themselves in any fashion. I wanted them to understand that because I know that a child's psychology is formed by the time they're 7. And then what they do is from the age of 7, anything that comes after that is compounded on top of what's already there. But those belief systems are already installed. And somebody wrote here in the chat I saw just now about, I think it was a lady who said that, a lot of women wake up next to a man in their 50s or 40s or 50s and they wake up to a man who's hit the wall and suddenly doesn't know who he is anymore. And what I say to people is that the majority of adults in the world today, the vast majority, 99.9% of them, are little children walking around in big bodies. And you can take the most intelligent person that you know and you put them under pressure and they'll act like a 5-year-old because they have no emotional resilience, because they've never practiced it, or they've never gone out of their way to understand about their emotions and the emotional resources that they have available to them. And they don't have any idea about how to transform adversity into profit because they haven't gone out of their way to understand that. So to answer your question, my friend, you have to be present with children when they're young. And that's difficult for parents who don't have time to do it. Because imagine if you go to work early in the morning and you drop your kid at a creche, etc., or whatever, and you come back late in the evening, you pick your kid up at the creche, you're tired, now you got to make food, and then you got to put the child to bed. You don't have quality time with your child, and it's really tough. I was lucky, myself and Maxine, we had quality time with our kids for the first several years of their life. We ran a business from home in South Africa. We had a beautiful piece of land. We overlooked the sea. The kids had a beautiful life. And we impressed upon them our values and our belief systems about the world and about human beings and about how important it is to develop your mindset. And so we've got very healthy kids, 24 and 21. They're very wise. And they've had their own traumas because they went through a divorce and they both lost their confidence when that happened. And what I did was I told you I was going to answer the question for anybody who's struggling with children and they're not talking or they're not opening up. My kids shut down when that happened. And I noticed it was obvious that they had lost their confidence because I wasn't around anymore. And they suddenly thought, well, where's dad, right? Why isn't dad around anymore? And it doesn't matter how amicable we went through our divorce and how we were able to do it consciously and very constructively, there's still pain involved. There's still trauma. And so for a long time after that, I kept saying to my kids, whenever I was with them, whenever they were with me for the weekend, I'd say to them, hey, listen, if you ever want to say anything to dad, anything at all, whatever you want to say, whatever's on your head, whatever's on your heart, anything, even if you want to tell dad what it is, even if you want to shout at me, even if you want to get angry, dad is going to listen and he's not going to talk. He's just going to listen because I really want to understand where you are and I really want to give you the opportunity to vent, to get rid of what's inside of you so that it doesn't become ill inside of you. Don't become ill from that. And they got it after a while. It took a long time. For my son, it took about 3 years. And then one day he said to me, he said, yeah, I want to tell you something. And then he just offloaded on me. He offloaded. And I just sat there and I cried because it was so moving. And he cried. And it went on for about 40 minutes. And I just kept quiet. And then he would remember something else. And I kept quiet. He would remember something else. Eventually he was finished. And then I sat there and he said, I'm finished now, Dad. And then he smiled and he said, thanks, that felt good. And then we hugged and we cried. And it changed him overnight. It was like he was 13 at that time. And he came back to himself. Like the little boy I remembered he was at 6. The confidence came back. The smile came back. The personality, the sense of humor. My daughter, on the other hand, is different. She's a girl. And girls are always different. It's taken her longer. However, I want to read something to you, if I may, if that's okay. She sent me this message. I feel quite emotional now because I'm remembering it. I'm going to read it to you. My daughter's taken longer. And Amber and I, her name is Amber. I should have called her Grace Amber instead of Amber Grace because the Grace might have been, might have changed her personality slightly. She's Amber. She got fire. But her and I have got the very same temperament. And that's why when we were young, we used to lock heads because she's fiery and she's very emotionally mature. She's very smart. She's street smart too. And she's a great personality, got a great sense of humor. She's very quick-witted. But she wrote to me this the other day. She sent this to me on Saturday, the 13th of June. That's last Saturday, right? And she sent this to me at 2:44 a.m. She works at nights and she obviously got home late. She wrote this. I woke up on Sunday morning and I opened my phone to receive this message. And this was at about 7:30 a.m. And she said, hey, Dad, I think I've been holding on to some resentment and anger towards you. And I think for a long time I've been trying to ignore that I have. But I think for the first time in a long time, I can say that I have. I'm ready to let that go now. But the only way I can is by saying is that I want you to know me as a person, which I don't think you do. Or try to at least. To me, you still think of me as a child, which I understand I'm your little girl. But I'm now 21. And if we are both being honest, you know nothing about me except for the obvious things. But I want us to have a relationship if you are willing to put the effort in, meaning no more phones when we hang out, no more empty promises, and please listen to me. I'm sad most of the time that we don't have a good relationship that we used to have and pretend that we do, which just makes it awkward. But I love you very much, and I just want it to be shown, and I want to show you that. You've hurt me a lot in the past, I'm not going to lie. But I would like to, in the future, be proud of my dad and proud of the relationship we have. As I've grown up sad about seeing other friends of mine have amazing relationship with their dad, I would like that for myself, for you and I. I'm sorry if this comes as a shock for you or makes you upset. That is not my intention. I would just like a dad who shows up more for me. I love you so much, Amber. So it's taken her longer, right? And she has expressed herself in that way several times over the years because I know that there's layers to the onion. And, I'm still healing myself. I told Mac recently that I'm going through a very tough time myself. And I'm lucky I have the strategies and I'm lucky that I have the practices and the disciplines to bring myself back to my center and back to my heart. However, for the last few years, I've been in my head a lot. I've been I've had moments of depression that have lasted for long periods of time. I have thought about suicide. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think a lot of people think about suicide, but we just don't act on it. I always have procrastinated my suicide date You know, I used to tell myself when I was in my 20s and 30s that I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then eventually one day I stood in the audience, in front of a big audience, and I said, you know, does procrastination work? And people say, no. I say, it does work if you procrastinate your suicide until you get to the point you don't want to do it anymore. You may have the thoughts, but you don't follow through on it. So I have been through a tough place myself over recent years. And, you know, life doesn't get easy. We have to get better. Yeah, we have to get better at managing it. We have to become more resilient. We have to become more compassionate with ourselves and the people that we love and people in general, just strangers. We have to become more tolerant. We have to remember to think before we respond rather than just react from that primitive brain, that reptilian brain, which is all about the ego, I, rather than we. So I think it's a long answer to your question about children, but I hope it helps.
Alan, I'm going to jump in very quickly because we're having loads of people commenting going, we can't end now. Alan's adding too much value, too many questions. Please don't end on because we're supposed to finish at 6 and it's just flowing.
Well, it's gone by so quick. Sorry, but I've been talking a long time. I apologize.
No, it's all but the value has been incredible. Have you got a few more minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes for us to run?
I've got time, brother. I've got time.
Okay.
I've got time. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I think there are people that are appreciating this, but they also are taking stuff away that they can go and implement and learn. So I'd love to just, if there's one person listening and it makes an impact and a difference, then so be it. Felipe, over to you, my friend.
One thing I'll go to Joel, I promise, is you talked about the shame thing. I want people to really understand that is when you shame, especially a man who's trying to be vulnerable for the first time, you've just put him back 10 more steps now. And
Absolutely.
And so remember that, I've experienced it with my own family, that when I started sharing, like, they were like, they wouldn't even joke, oh, you don't know about emotions. And it's like, hold on, I'm trying to be honest. But more important, I want to highlight that you said, the children. Your child, that what she said to you was amazing. And this is what I want people to remember is we don't change as much as our children. And I'll never forget when my daughter says, I'm trying to learn how to have an adult relationship with you. It's a very different relationship that you need to be patient with. And that blew my mind. I never thought about her going from child to, and so it is a different relationship. And so, and your son and daughter being different, think about it. It might not even be a gender thing. It might be, you're like this parent, you're like this parent. I need to be aware of how you address your emotions because
Absolutely.
you're addressing it like your mother, not like me. So I need to recognize that. So I just wanted to highlight those things you mentioned. That's powerful for parents to remember. All right, Joel, over to you, my friend.
Thanks for that, Felipe.
I'm probably the most expert in hiding anything. Because for the large part of my life, I've had to invent a completely different person to fit in and actually get a social life, which actually didn't work at all because I didn't have one and still really don't. But so I'm now trying to figure out who I am, where I'm going, and what I'm doing. And I've got no idea at 34.
What's your name, my friend?
Joel.
Joel.
Yes.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Where are you right now?
Boiling hot in the UK.
Which part?
North London.
North London. Okay, cool. Where specifically?
Edgware.
Edgware. I know Edgware well. Joel, thanks for sharing that, buddy. You said something very powerful there. You are working out who you are. I think that's a question that every human being needs to spend a long time contemplating. Who am I? In fact, everybody listening here today, please write that down. Who am I? ? And I would take that question if I was you, like I did as a young man, and I would stick it on the wall, and I would look at that every day and contemplate that question for 15 to 20 minutes a day. Who am I? Who am I? You see, children, by the time a child is 1, think about this, my friends who are listening here and watching. Think about this. By the time a child turns 1, they have a name, a religion, a creed, a nationality, and it is fictional. It's a fictional identity. It's being given to them. And then it gets enforced upon them continuously as they grow up. And then they get told all kinds of things about who they are. And consequently, they never ever engage in that question or engage in contemplating that question, or they don't even come across the question perhaps until they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like, hang on a second, who am I? Because you're not your name. You're not your body. You're not your role. You're not your vocation. You're not your career. You're none of those things. You're not your labels, or you're none of the labels you've been given. You have a hand. You are not a hand. You have a body. You are not a body. You are a spirit. You are an energetic being, an energetic entity. Listen now, my friends. You cannot argue this. I've spent 38 years studying consciousness and philosophy and spiritual development, spiritual psychology. It's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt through quantum physics that everything is energy. Everything has an energetic essence to it. In other words, if you were to look at the most solid of structures, like this desk, or anything solid under a high-powered microscope, you would see that that solid object that is right in front of you, and your evidence of your eyes is telling you there's a solid object, you can't put your hand through it, yet you look at it under a high-powered microscope, what do you see? 99.9% space. It doesn't exist. All you see is the physical manifestation of the molecules, electrons, atoms moving at speed, causing a solid, dense piece of matter. However, at its core, it is not matter. It is essence. So, while you are here on earth, you should be always asking yourself, who am I? Who am I? If I'm not my name, if I'm not my body, if I'm not my vocation, if I'm not my role, if I'm not my whatever it is, right? My gender, whatever, anything that you've been told who you are none of those things. So who are you? Well, Joel, I'd like to put it to you that you are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. So the next brings me to your next question. Where am I going? Maybe there's nowhere to go. Maybe you're already there. Because I always think that wherever you are, you should be there, 100%. Because whenever people are somewhere, they're not there mentally. Have you ever been with someone and the lights are not on, right? They're not there. The lights are on, but no one's home. And you know they're not with you, and they're not present with you. Women, ladies, you know exactly when your man is not present, right? You know exactly when your man is not present. You can check. You say, hey, where are you? Come back here. Oh, yeah, here I am. I'm listening. Yeah, what did I say? Yeah, you see, you weren't listening. So we know when people are not present. So, Joel, maybe you're already here, and maybe your job is just to practice being more present. Because the more present you become with who you are, with who you really are, the more you'll find there's more of you available. You'll find there's parts of you that you haven't met yet. And then the third thing you said is about, what are you doing? And I would say to you, there's nothing to do, my friend. The only thing you need to practice is being. Being comes before doing. You have being, then doing, then having. You must be first, then you do, then you have. If you focus on being who you are, which is a spiritual being human, so then you ask yourself, if I'm a spiritual being, if you subscribe to that philosophy and you think everything is energetic and you agree with that, then if you're an energetic being having a temporary human experience, your body is housing your soul, then the next question becomes, why has my soul chosen this body in this time right now? What am I here to do? And how do I do that? By being authentic, by being loving, by being compassionate, by being energetic, by being whatever it is you want to be, right? By being authentic. And then if you have an authentic expression of who you really are, then you'll find that whatever you do will come naturally for you. And then you'll grow into something without even realizing that you wanted to do that, because your soul will remember why it came here. And then you get to enjoy what it is you came here to enjoy. So there you go, my friend. I would say one more thing to you, Joel. One more thing, my friend. Is you really want to explore and interrogate and investigate your own psyche linked to your youth, the first 7 years of your life. What happened that caused you to have to feel that you needed to cope and create a different persona or different, a mask? And Joel, you're not alone, my friend. Every human being I've ever met has got a mask, maybe more than one. Some have got plenty, because nobody has really ever learned how to be themselves comfortably in front of other people, because they always feel like they need to prove themselves to other people so they can get validation. And if you can let go of needing anybody else's validation and just say, I'm going to spend the next period of my life really finding out who I am really behind all of the labels, and really feeling into myself on a daily basis, and really just listening to my soul, listening to my own intuition, listening for the little voice that speaks inside my heart. Eventually you'll start to hear it, right? And then it'll lead you down a path that perhaps you didn't even know existed yet. So I wish that for you, my friend.
Thank you. Nice.
Sure. I was a little master class in a question that I think everybody asks. And it reminds me of that Sunshine and Sunscreen song where the guy says, some
I
of the
love that
people
song.
in their 20s are trying to figure it out, but some people in their 40s still have no idea what they're doing. But that taking time to really, because I really want people to hear what you've said there, Alan, when you talk about that getting to know you, that whole be, do, have concept. I had this internal battle in my head, always fighting myself, thinking about, that person's doing that, maybe I should be doing that, or comparing myself to anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that ability to just go quiet and focus on self, and who am I and who do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
That is where the magic happens. And
100%.
You said something so nicely there, where you kind of spoke about that first year of where everything, like your identity, is forced upon you, because that's just circumstantial. That happens to every single person that comes into this world. But the choice of what we do with that, and whether we let that define who we are, that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother conversation. I think we'll spend days on that, but just beautifully said. Now I'm conscious that we've had a few people waiting quite a while. We've even had some guy who ran across the country with a pink flamingo, and now he's looking all chilled and relaxed.
I do recognize that gentleman. I don't know where from though.
So I'm going to come to him in a second, but Gregory's been waiting for quite a while. Shame that Alan, your time is so appreciated, my friend.
No worries, bud.
Gregory, you have been waiting patiently. What is your question, your contribution, your thoughts? I'm conscious of time, and then we'll go to Bill straight after that.
Yeah, I'll be short and sweet, and sugar and sweet, basically. So it's basically a question. Since that this is, I'm going to go 1/3 of a comment that MALA did on the comments in terms of a crisis. What can we do in terms of overall society in regards to the crisis that we have globally, in terms of a shortage of psychiatry, people in psychiatry and psychologists in every corner of the globe? We're talking here in Canada, there's a shortage of people who are willing to take patients. I could guarantee you there's shortages in the United States of America, and I could guarantee you there's shortages in the EU, or where three of our gentlemen is located in the UK. So what can we do in regards to kill the crisis in regards to the shortage of people in the corresponding field per se? Because it's basically, this is all because of males, and I'll say overall the human species keeping things bottled up, because they have no psychiatrists or psychologists to to relay their troubles onto in terms of an open discourse or an open form of that realm per se. So what can be done per se, because this is going to become even more worse when you interject the stuff that we're witnessing here in terms of employment, and now we basically put in AI type of behavior, which we all know that it is a humanless type of tool or device in regards to person to person, human to human interaction per se. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's stick with the first question first. Let's not talk about AI. That's a different conversation altogether. However, I don't think you're going to like my answer. I don't agree with psychiatry. And if you study the origins of psychiatry, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not a good thing. Psychiatrists do one thing and one thing only. They prescribe medicine, and I don't agree with that. You see, I don't believe in that kind of medicine. And I have an educated viewpoint on that because, I was prescribed medicine as a kid. A doctor wanted to give me Ritalin, and my mother said no. And I'm so glad she said no, because Ritalin would have changed who I was and would have changed my personality. Psychiatrists feed medicine to people left, right, and center to numb them down. I don't believe in that. I believe what the world needs is enlightened leaders. The world needs awakened people. The world needs awakened souls. And the only way to awaken as a soul is to ask yourself the question every single day. Who am I? Why am I here? Why is my soul manifested in this time and space? And I said something just now, and I want to go back to it because it's linked to this. I said that by the time a child is one, it's got a name, it's got a creed, a religion, a race, etc. It's got an identity that's been pushed on it. Now, that's a fictional identity. And isn't it interesting that those same children with a fictional identity that's been given to them will grow up into adults who defend their fictional identity to the point of death? They're defending a fictional identity that doesn't even exist. It's not even accurate. And a lot of those people are doing what? Taking drugs for anxiety, for depression, to sleep better, to absorb their food better, to lose weight. All of those things are unnecessary. Why? Because it all starts right here. Dis-ease of the mind leads to disease of the body. It first must start here. And that starts here because I point here because this is the head that houses the brain. But this is where we talk to ourselves in our heads. And we have a mind. We don't have a mind per se. We are connected to the universal mind on 3 different levels: the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. The conscious mind is the part of the mind that decides what to say in an email or how to create a slide deck. Let's say when you're doing a presentation, you need your conscious mind to think about how you're going to lay things out. You don't need your conscious mind to tie your laces. That's your unconscious mind. You don't need your conscious mind to change gears when you're driving a car. That's unconscious. You don't need your conscious mind to think about the blood flowing from your ear down to your heart. That's unconscious. However, the unconscious mind, although it's 1,000,000 times stronger than the conscious mind, I'm going to say that again. The unconscious mind is 1,000,000 times stronger than the conscious mind. The unconscious mind is an unlimited filing cabinet. The unconscious mind is an unlimited server. Think about the supercomputers on this planet and the ability that they have. They have nothing compared to the unconscious. They are nowhere even near, not even the same galaxy as the unconscious mind. Now, if the unconscious mind is 1,000,000 times stronger than the conscious mind, how come the conscious mind is the master of the unconscious? Why? Because the unconscious is a servant and the conscious mind is the master. And unfortunately, we have turned our conscious mind into a destructive, critical master. And it happens around the age of 2 years of age, anywhere between 1 and 2 years of age, where a child begins to individuate away from its mother. Because up until that time, a child still feels it's part of the mother. It still feels one as the mother. But as soon as it starts to individuate away from the mother and becomes an identity-focused human being, and it starts to develop the ego, and it learns the word no. Have you ever heard a child that learned the word no? Have you ever seen a child like that? Do this, no. Eat this, no. Wear this, no. Come here, no. It's always no, no, no. And they start, and they get power from that. Because now they think, oh yeah, I'm the boss now. I've learned a new word. I can do what I want. I can say no. So that's where it starts. So you have to be careful, because what happens is, as this child grows, right, into this false identity without really understanding who it is in an environment that's not nurturing it effectively, that conscious creative mind, that's what your conscious mind is. It's a creative faculty. Your conscious mind is creative by nature. You should write this down. This is very important. Your conscious mind is creative by nature. Nature gave you a conscious creative mind. The ability to close your eyes right now and imagine yourself in a Ferrari convertible flying down the PCH with Malibu Beach on your left-hand side, the ocean running out, and you're flying down into Malibu and you see all the beautiful houses and all the houses on the hill above you here, right? That's your conscious creative mind. You can close your eyes and imagine anything. You can see a picture. And I can do it easily because I've been practicing it for so long. Some people can't even see anything. They close their eyes and say, I don't see anything. It's just black. That's because they've allowed their critical mind, the critic that started to develop around the age of 2, and as soon as you have a significant emotional event, something that impacts your nervous system, and you learn, oh my God, and you feel unsafe, and now you think, okay, what can I do to be safe? How can I avoid that for the rest of my life? I never want to have that happen again. Oh my God, my parents are getting divorced. I don't want to have that happen. Let me avoid love. Because if I avoid love, I'll never have to get divorced. You now start suddenly coping, right? And you're building all these limiting beliefs. And now your critical mind starts sending messages to your unconscious. I'm not good enough. Life sucks. Women are bitches. Men are bastards. Look at those black people. They're idiots. Look at those Russians. They're idiots. Look at America. They're idiots. Look at those people over there. And we start buying into these global beliefs. And it's our environment that shapes us. So we have to ask ourselves the question all the time. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing here? What's my soul about? What's this about? Because life is more spiritual than material. We are locked into the material 3D world because that's what we can see, touch, taste, and feel. But that's why it's so important to calm down and to sit quietly for 20 minutes a day at least and contemplate, who am I? And that's why it says in the Bible, and Jesus said it, be still and know I am God. And when you are still enough for long enough, you'll start to hear the whisper of your soul, and you'll start to hear the God self inside of you calling you to a higher place. And then your conscious mind over time and practice, with much practice, with a lot of self-forgiveness, with a lot of letting go, with a lot of compassion, you can begin to get rid of the critic that lives inside your head, or the critics, plural, if you've got more than one. Like I used to have a whole bunch of them, a choir of those guys, right, living inside of my head, all barking orders and telling me what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing and who I should be and how I should do that. Just like you said, Mac, trying to copy everyone else so I could fit in, right? And then I just started letting that go and started doing those practices. And eventually that critic quietens down, and now you don't have a critic anymore. Now you've got a fan. Now you've got someone who says, hey, come on, you can do this. You got this. You got this. Hey, you're feeling low? That's okay. Feel it to release it. Acknowledge it. It's okay. It'll pass. And now your unconscious mind becomes your partner in success. Your unconscious mind is your partner in success, but it cannot be your partner in success if your conscious mind is critical and always criticizing yourself and the world around you. And now your superconscious mind is your connection to everything around you, your connection to God, to the universe, to the greater good, to the infinite field of cosmic soup, whatever you want to call it, right? That superconscious mind connects you to everything and is inside of you and all around you at all times. That's why Jesus said, the kingdom of God is inside you and all around you. Pay attention. And when you have access to that, now you can download moments of genius or ideas, and suddenly you have, boom, you got an idea. Or suddenly you bump into somebody, or suddenly a door opens, or suddenly you feel like you've been blessed by the grace of God, or whatever it is. You have a miracle. So that's a long answer to your question, my friend. My friend, I don't believe in psychiatry. I think it's dangerous.
Question.
I think they drug too many people. Last thing I want to say about that, psychologists. I'm a psychologist. I'm a spiritual psychologist. I love psychologists. I think psychology is the most important It's the most important subject on the planet. I told my kids about psychology since they were young. Every human being should study psychology so you can know who you are and so you can decide your own things and make up your own mind about things and question everything. Don't believe anything. Don't even believe anything I'm telling you. Question everything.
What are your thoughts on therapy? A quick answer.
Therapy is important. Therapy is important, but make sure you get a good therapist. Most therapists are not worth they're not worth their weight in salt. Most therapists have never had therapy. Most therapists will become a therapist so they don't have to focus on their own life, so they can fix other people. I had 12 years of study and therapy before I opened my mouth. I had 12 years of therapy and study on myself before I even opened my mouth to give other people information or other people ideas.
Thank you. Over to you, Mac.
My brain is just going into so many different places. But the thing is, I love the way you finished off there, Alan, about that fact that, the question everything, and not to take things as they are, because a lot of the things that end up shaping the time that we spend doing whatever we do comes from those things that we may not have questioned. And
Yes. Those beliefs that we've absorbed from other people as gospel.
Yeah.
It must be the truth, which they said it. Nonsense.
I tell you what, I think we're going to have a whole other conversation on that. Otherwise, I think we'll still be here tomorrow afternoon. But
part 2 and invite him back.
We should have a part 2, actually. We should have a part 2 because we haven't really even got to
You've said it now, Alan. You've said it. You don't understand. I've got in the community, I think there's like over 1,500 people that are going to hold you to this.
Oh, it's recorded.
I'm up for it.
Yeah, it's proof. I'm gonna just clip that and post it on social media. Alan said, but here's the thing: we've got 2 more people that have been so patient that want to ask or contribute.
Yes.
And I want to finish off with allowing Alan some time for people to be able to know how they can connect, how they can reach out. Like, what's the next step if they have questions that are unanswered and they want to seek out more information. And hour and a half of your time full on. And I know people have to pay a lot of money to go to events to be able to come and see you. And we've been graced and absolutely blown away with a lot of what you're saying. And I think from the comments that I've seen, a lot of people needed some of this information about themselves, whether you're male or female or that whole "who am I" is, I think, the one single most important nugget I've taken away throughout this, excluding about 100 others. But with that, I wanted to go to Bill, who ran through a park, kidnapped a flamingo, has gone to change, and now he's here. He always comes up with some interesting questions and insights. Bill, what questions do you have or insights that you'd like to share with Alan and get feedback on?
And is the flamingo safe?
I did not kidnap a flamingo. I was at a mango party, and they said I could take it. I'm not going to be long. Alan, everything that you said about yourself literally applied to me, from the way that you and your wife had an amicable divorce to the way that when your children, my daughters and I have always had a great relationship, but there was one point where they sat me down and said, you don't know me as an adult. And the suicide thoughts, and that, I just keep pushing it off. It was all compelling. And I felt like somebody else was living my life while you were describing what you went through. And then the question about why do people not ask for help? It is, or men especially, you get beat down. You get told that you're not doing enough. And I finally have released everything, Alan. And I believe I know who I am. And I say it that specifically because I'm always evolving. But I
agree.
What I'm struggling with is, what do I do in the meantime? So right now, the way that everything is in America, things are up in the air. Jobs, everything. And so I'm good if I have a job. But right now I have no job, no money, right? So how do I keep myself from going down that path in the meantime? Because I feel like this is just a moment, right?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and it is a moment. I agree with you. It's just a moment. This is temporary. Everything is temporary. Everything passes. And that's a great phrase to tell yourself. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Whenever you're feeling bad, whenever you're feeling shit or anything, just say that. This too shall pass. And then back it up with this question. What in this moment right now is anything missing? And the truth, the truth to that question the answer can only be no. Nothing's missing right now in this moment. And I know what that feels like, to be in a moment where you've got no money and you can't even get on a tube because you've got no money for the tube, and you have to sneak your kids through the turnstile. And I used to have to do that. And then when I was feeling really at the lowest of low, I would stop myself and say, in this moment right now, is anything really missing? No, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm healthy, I've got intellectual property, I've got people who love me. I might not have the money I want that I need right now to create more freedom, but right now, nothing's missing in this moment. So remind yourself of that. And then also to further answer your question, what can you do? I would do things that make you feel good. Because here's the real truth of being a human and being alive on this earth. Your only job while you're here is to feel good. Because when you feel good, your vibration goes up. And I mean authentically good. Not feeling good because you've had 6 beers or you've dropped a tab of acid or whatever. I'm talking about feeling good because you feel good. Because you're doing things to feel good. You're going to the gym, you're running, you're cycling, you're swimming, you're engaging with people that you love, you calling people up to tell them that you miss them, whatever it is, anything that makes you feel good or opens your heart or makes you feel positive about life or optimistic or enthusiastic is going to raise your vibration. And you have access to the most powerful resource at any time of your life, even when you're broke, especially when you're broke financially, especially when you have nothing coming in. And that is the power of your emotion. Emotion is what moves things. Because if you put yourself in the right emotion, you can make shit happen. But if you put yourself in the wrong emotion, you can't do anything. So emotions are the ultimate resource, and you need to learn how to tap into those on a more regular basis and do whatever you can do to make yourself feel better emotionally, to lift your emotions, to put yourself in uplifting, resourceful emotions.
So the scary part is, for me, if I tap into emotions, if I tap into the emotion that I'm feeling in the moment, that could be sad. So I suppress my emotions.
Yeah, that could be sad. So that's a good point, because you preempted me there. I was going to say that you could be, you want to do things to put yourself in a greater emotion. So you could be feeling sad and you could think, you know what, I want to go to the gym, but your head might say, you know what, I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't have the energy for that. And this is where you really serve yourself, is by listening to that and saying and acknowledging it. As you want to make sure you acknowledge yourself and say, okay, I understand I feel sad, and it's okay to feel sad. And I also have the power to move myself from sadness into a much more powerful emotion. But you first have to feel it and acknowledge it. They've done a great study with a large number of people, and they found out that when people acknowledge what they feel to themselves, not to anyone else, just to themselves, just by acknowledging or labeling what they feel, the energy dissipates very soon after that. What most people don't do is they don't acknowledge, and they kind of deflect from themselves. They block it off, they cover it up, they drink it out, or they watch TV, or they have sex, or whatever it is, they take drugs, or they deflect, right? Because they don't want to feel what they're feeling, because what they're feeling is scary for them. But if you can actually feel it, acknowledge it, you say, I'm feeling sad. Okay, cool. Why am I feeling sad? I'm feeling sad because of X, Y, Z. Okay, that's okay. That's a temporary situation, and that's okay to feel sad. It's not going to last for long. And what can I do right now to put myself in a great state where I can put myself in a state that's going to lead me towards action, towards constructive action? Okay, I could go for a run. And then your mind might say, I don't feel like running. And that's where the discipline comes in. That's where the commitment comes in. That's when you got to say to that little voice there, thank you for sharing. I know you don't want to go for a run, but I'm going to go for a run anyway. And you go for a run anyway. Because it's the people who do the things that are uncomfortable, even when they don't feel like doing them, are the people who eventually break through to the places that they want to be.
Wonderful. I got to ask you a question now, because I know it's making it longer, Mac. I'm sorry. But so what are your thoughts on, you hear so many different examples, and I think that everyone is different. I hate the word mantra, but repeating the positive things to yourself, coming up with those same things to say to you daily, what's the value in that? Because for me, when I was going through it,
that's a great question.
I say 5 things to myself: be confident in what I know, be curious about what I don't know and learn it, be grateful for what I have, be passionate to myself, and be tenacious. I got this. That works for me. It might not work for somebody else, but the value of coming up with something to remind yourself consistently. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a very powerful thing to do, actually. And I would say to you, my friend Felipe, look up the origin of the word mantra so you can change your association to the word. It's a very good word, mantra. And look up the origin of that word, so then it changes your association, because you probably I'm gonna take a guess, but I might be wrong, and please correct me. But maybe not now's the time, but we can talk about it. But perhaps you've heard somebody say something about that word mantra, right? And it's got lodged in your brain. You've got a bit of a mind virus there. You want to get that out. I love mantras. I sing mantras. I say them all the time. And I would encourage you to say I am. Anything you say after I am. I've got loads of them, and I've been saying them since 1988, July of 1988, when I heard Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Dennis Waitley talk about positive self-affirmation. Brian Tracy used to say, people who succeed in life have a high self-esteem. People who are popular in life have high self-esteem. People who make lots of money have high self-esteem. He said, if you want to be a high self-esteem people, learn to like yourself. How do you do that? You go to the mirror every day and you say to yourself 5 times, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself. I tried to do that for 6 months. Every time I turned up in the mirror, I said, I'll come back tomorrow. Eventually, 6 months later, I said, I like myself through gritted teeth. I like myself, But now I can look in the mirror and say, hey, man, I see you there. You're doing great. I love you, man. You're looking good. Keep that stuff up, brother. I got you, Because I talk to myself like that. And I remember that who I'm talking to is a little boy in my heart here, the little 3-year-old Alan, the little kid who was afraid of life, who was traumatized. I talk to that little boy every day, and I love him as much as I can, because that's the little boy that's actually running my life. Your inner child is running your life. And unless you nurture that inner child and reparent them, you have to reparent your own inner child. Unless you do that effectively, that little child's going to run amok and throw their toys out the cot when they don't get their own way. So mantras are very powerful. Come up with lots of them. I used to stick them all over the walls in my house and say them over and over and over. I can't tell you how often I say it. Every day I walk around in my head, I'm saying beautiful things to myself. I am love. I am loving. I am lovable. I am enough. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. And when I see people in the street, I tell them, in my mind, I say, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Especially if I see somebody who's homeless or somebody who's down and out, I send them love. I say, God, send your love from me, through me, to that person right now. Grant them some grace. Grant them some help, whatever it is. So it's about being intentional, about being conscious with the way you use your language in your own head.
I have a few of these little cutouts.
Mac, I'm going to have to go, Mac. Mac, I'm going to have to go soon. Otherwise, I'm going to get my head cut off, brother. I can't hear you, Mac. You're muted. You're muted, Mac.
I've become famous for freaking talking away and not actually being heard. Anyway, that's just a technical thing. So, Alan, I want to thank you very much for sharing. I want our co-hosts. I'm conscious that we are running out of time here. Please, can I ask our co-hosts and anybody else who's got events and things coming up to share in the comments where we can go and find what you are doing. And to respect your time, Alan, I'm going to hand over and ask you how can people reach out? What is the next step? You've already promised another session. We'll try and keep it to time, although I don't think that's going to happen now. If they want to reach out or they want to take the next step or they want to find out more, where do they go? Yeah. What's the process?
Well, Mac, thanks for asking that question. I really appreciate it. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed my time with you people. And it's amazing. It's now 18:40 and it's been so awesome. It feels like it's gone by in 10 minutes. And I think we should definitely do it part 2. And Mac, I don't know if you saw my message I sent you earlier before we started, about an hour before we started, just saying, is it okay? Is that possible?
Yeah,
awesome. So what I was going to say to everybody who's listening here, obviously we haven't covered, half of what we could cover. Like Max says, I can talk for days, and I do have my own 4-day workshop, 4 full days. However, I was said to Mac before we started the session, about an hour before we started, I said, hey, Mac, how about we invite people on Tuesday night to a Zoom? And they come to a Zoom with me and we have like a 90-minute Zoom. And I want to take people through a specific process that we haven't been able to cover here, because it wasn't appropriate to do it here. However, I would love to take those of you who want to show up on Tuesday on Zoom at 7 p.m. with me and Mac. And I want to take you through a particular process that has done wonders for my life and wonders for helping me to forgive myself for all the things that I thought that God would never love me for. And so if you're interested in that and you want to come and join us, I'm going to send Mac the Zoom link right now. I'll send it to you, Mac, if that's all right. And then if people want to connect with me, they can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, which is where I'm spend most of my time on Instagram. Mac is very kindly going to help me to sort out my Zoom. Sorry, not my Zoom, my LinkedIn, because I told Mac that I created a LinkedIn profile in 2009, and I've never done anything with it ever since. And I've been on LinkedIn since 2009 till now, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 times. So he's going to help me with my LinkedIn. But connect with me on Instagram and Facebook. And then if you want to join us, Mac, I've just sent you the link now, the Zoom link. And if you want to join us on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m., I'm going to do a little session for you. And I want to do a little practice with you that I've been doing with myself every single day since, I came across this process for the first time from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I've used it ever since. And I use it everywhere I go. And I've used it on myself to forgive myself and heal my own traumas. And I still use it on myself now because I'm still healing myself. I've been dealing with my own demons and traumas, now since, consciously dealing with them since 1988. But if you want to join us on Tuesday, please do. Mac, you got that link for Zoom. And then, I just want to say thanks again. It's been awesome. I just have thoroughly loved it. Thank you so much for the invitation, brother. I really appreciate you.
Amazing. Well, folks, what I'm going to do in order to make sure that you just don't have a Zoom link and not sure when to turn up, Alan, I'm going to create an event with all the details. So if you can let me know exactly time, I'll come and drop it into the comments of this event, but also go on to Social Saturday and actually share that so that people can go and
Awesome.
attend that event and know how what's happening. But again, thank you so much. Grateful for your time. Everybody, if you could do us a favor and just go onto Alan's profile, find his latest post. It might be a decade ago, but just go and give him like a thumbs up so that he knows that you saw him elsewhere in the wild. And just show him some love and appreciation. And again, massive thank you.
I think I might go onto LinkedIn just to jump in there. I think I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to give you a shout out, Mac, and you and your team, because this has been amazing. I'm going to just talk about what a great experience I've had here on Saturday. So, what's it called? Saturday Social.
Social Saturday
Social
chat.
Saturday. Yeah. And to everybody who interacted with me here, thank you so much. To everybody who commented and in the comments and that, I've been looking at them as they came up. Thank you. Also, it's been great for everyone who was listening and everyone who was present here. Thank you for your attention. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to meeting you in person at some point further down the road, if not seeing you on Zoom again soon.
Well, thank you for being so generous with your time, Alan. I know that the comments have been so powerful and so appreciative of what you've done and how much time you gave us. So thank your family for sharing you with us. And we look forward to Tuesday. And I got to say, one of my favorite things that you said was when you said that you have one of the greatest ex-wives ever. And I'm thinking, is that a pickup line? Can you go up to a woman and say, you know what? You wouldn't be a good wife, but you'd be a great ex-wife. I don't know why I thought that when you said that. It came to mind. So I just wanted to, but on that note, thank you again for the time. And hope everyone connects with you. Back to you, Mac.
Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, have a great week.
Mac, thanks, bud. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy.